Right now, we're at, I think, 424 billion is needed in the system tonight, just so that the banks survive another day.
Wait, say that again.
According to my calculations, we're at $424 billion that is needed just for tonight.
Friends, before we begin, just a quick thank you to this interview's sponsor, the new Patriot Brother X 2020 flashlight. One of the best things you can invest in for your home protection is a Patriot Brother flashlight. You'll never waste money on batteries again because the Patriot Brother flashlight is solar powered. It lights up the darkness with 800 lumens. There's a life-saving emergency strobe and 4 more unique lighting modes. And you can even charge your phone anywhere with the USB port. Other features include compass, magnet, rope and wire cutter, solar powered recharging, high and low beam LED modes, and an extended glass breaking hammer. This tactical flashlight is lightweight and durable. And it's the perfect gift for you and your loved ones this holiday season. You can save 20% right now on the new 2020 model before they sell out. So take advantage and get your family the gift of night protection. The link is below this video. Okay, friends, let's begin. I have the one and only Weir back on the line. You know his website, roadtoruta.com. You know him on Twitter. You certainly know him from his YouTube channel, which has really taken off over the past couple of years. He's doing great work. And I wanted to do this emergency update, guys, because this repo madness that's being talked about, it could bring the economy, it could bring the whole global economy to its knees. And even I'm having a hard time making sense of it. So, Bix, thanks for coming on to help us process this.
Good word, process. Hey, Sean, it's great to be on.
Well, it's great to have you on. Thanks for coming on short notice. I literally sent you a text 45 minutes ago asking if you could come on today because I saw a poll that Mike Krieger, Liberty Blitzkrieg's Mike Krieger, had retweeted. And the poll was basically this: do you fully understand repo and what it means? And 84% of the respondents said no. So, you know, we're seeing these crazy headlines like this one today on Zero Hedge. A quote-unquote market that needs $1 trillion in panic money printing to stave off implosion is not a market. What do you make of it? How worried should we be about this repo madness?
It's worrisome in that it was allowed to fester for so long. This is basically the shortest term money you can get, overnight money, so it's the cheapest. So, and it was always fully funded with bank cash deposits. So, you know, anybody could, not anybody, but banks could go in there and borrow overnight money. Hedge funds can get overnight money, and it was the cheapest money. And so they would finance long term with at higher rates, and then get this real cheap money because it kept churning every night. And then kind of beginning of the year, the banks started pulling the money out because the regulations were changing. And then our friends over at JP Morgan pulled out a massive amount. About 158 billion over the year up to June, which was 60% almost of what they had in there. So I think definitely JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon is at war with the world. I think they're trying to do something to put us into a position where they have to get bailout money by hook or by crook. And right now they're getting it through these overnight repos.
All right. So, you know, I mentioned Mike Krieger. Let's just flush this out a little further with a tweet from him that I also saw today. And he says, quote, "The Fed's bailout of Wall Street during the financial crisis amounted to a staggering $29 trillion, including the central bank liquidity swap lines, CBLS, a sum that neither the American people nor Congress would learn about until years after." And he says, it's happening again. So, is this QE4? Is this what's happening? Because from the Of Two Minds blog, we have this, quote, "If the market is so healthy, why is the Fed panic money printing over $1 trillion in a few months?" He says, please glance at the charts below. The Fed has printed $213 billion in repos and $336 billion for asset purchases in the blink of an eye. And the Fed has promised to panic print another $200+ billion in repos and another $300+ billion in asset purchases for a grand total of over $1 trillion in panic money printing. Meanwhile, we hear that the economy is doing great and the stock market's at an all-time high, but I'm starting to feel the sense that it's panic time.
Yeah, well, yes, it is. And you know, since we've been talking for the past 10 years, this is kind of the end game that we've all been talking about in gold and silver and even in the cryptos, is the system is unsustainable. And, you know, we always thought, what would it look like at the very end of this of this game. And what it looks like is infinity money printing. That's in the Road to Ruta comics from the Fed. That's what Ruta wrote in the sand. Print money to infinity, soaking up all the benefits of unbacked fiat money. Build your roads and your bridges and your houses, and you build your military until you implode the entire system, getting rid of all the unbacked fiat money, all the debt goes away, and start fresh. That's the end game of all fiat money, is printing to infinity. Now the question is, how fast are they going to infinity? Catherine Austin Fitts has shown almost $30 trillion that's been printed. And now we have the Fed literally printing money hand over fist and telling the public about it. That's the very scary and strange thing. They normally hide this stuff, but now they're telling people. I think we're nearing the end game in this fiat money system.
The other thing that I've read is that the Fed is monetizing the debt by buying the treasuries. Is that also what you're seeing? Are you hearing that the Fed is literally buying up all of the U.S., not all of them, but the Fed is buying up U.S. treasuries as a funding mechanism of last resort? Because what are we now, $23 trillion in stated debt? I don't see any way out of this that ends well. We've talked about this so many times, and I think you and I differ on this. I think that you think that this is all being done by design, and it will end well in some sort of debt jubilee. Am I paraphrasing you incorrectly, or is that essentially what you're thinking?
Well, I wouldn't call it a debt jubilee, because one man's debt is another man's asset. So yes, the debt will go away, but all the electronic assets will go away as well. So it's kind of hard to call it a debt jubilee, because that sounds so yay, group hug, and it's not. It is the way the system was set up was to absolutely destroy the unbacked fiat monetary system and the criminals that control it.
All right, well, let's stay grounded in reality here, and we'll look at another Zero Hedge article. Fed's emergency repo operation oversubscribed as repo rates spike back to December high. I think, wasn't there a point in the recent past where overnight rates spiked to 10%, Bix? Is that what they're referring to here? Let me read this.
Yeah, well, I think they were talking about the November high.
Yeah, that's why I'm confused. The headline says December high. Maybe they have that wrong. But didn't it spike to 10% at one point?
Yeah, it spiked to 10% in September. As a matter of fact, a little known fact, it was the night of September 16th, the repo rate spiked to 10%. That is also the very day that the three large JP Morgan traders were indicted by the Department of Justice for precious metal manipulation. Very interesting little coincidence. And then 2 months later, they changed those charges to RICO charges. So there's definitely a war going on between the DOJ and JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon.
I guess, as we process this, one of the reasons I wanted to just get you on and try to talk this through and try to see if there's any reason for panic is that I think I just recently saw President Trump talking about getting the Chinese to help support American agriculture via purchases of some 40 or 50 billion dollars in U.S. ag. And here we're talking about the Fed printing 500 billion in repo money. I mean, just think about that. On one hand, you have a trade war with China and the president saying, hey, we're going to get China to play ball and they're going to support U.S. farmers and agriculture by buying 40 or 50 billion dollars worth of product. Meanwhile, the banks are printing hundreds of billions of dollars and giving it to banksters, and they won't tell us who's getting the money, Bix. They won't tell us which banks are getting the money. It's just literally beyond the pale at this point. It's 2008 revisited.
It is. And if you think about it, 2008 was kind of a one-time jolt where they went to Congress and said, we need $700 billion. They know they can't do that again because it would get rejected. So what they're trying to do is stretch it out with the overnight repos, term repos, some treasury purchases. There's only, I think, 160 billion worth of treasury purchases since this started around 9/11 of 2019. But because they keep rolling over the overnights, it's more like a permanent type of operation. And I keep track of kind of where they are when they get paid back and all that. Right now, we're at, I think, 424 billion is needed in the system tonight, just so that the banks survive another day.
Wait, say that again. How much? 424 billion is needed tonight?
424 billion is needed tonight, which includes the things that are on short-term loans 2 or 3 weeks, even up to a month, as well as the overnight, as well as the treasury purchases that have been done since September 11th when this all started. So basically, the treasury purchase is about 160. The overnight for tonight, which is the 16th, is only 37, but they added another 56 just today. And then a lot of these things don't mature until January. So right now, according to my calculations, we're at $424 billion that is needed just for tonight. And some of those 37.7 rolls over tomorrow. Plus you got a, 17.8 billion rollover. So these are loans being rolled over. They can't do a QE type of thing, which is a purchase of like treasury notes or mortgage-backed securities. They can't do that. It's too visible. So what they're doing is giving these overnight loans, but because they keep rolling them over to a new loan, it's just like purchasing, but they're not telling the people what they're doing.
Well, it's just getting to be Zimbabwe level math, right? And that's what really concerns me here. The numbers are now so big that, even for me, I try to follow this stuff. And when I saw that poll today from Krieger, I guess I would have had to answer it honestly to say, no, I don't really understand. If I'm being honest, I don't really understand what this means. I mean, to the degree that it's super bad. Like, how bad is it? Another article from Zero Hedge. This one dated today, 12/16, Monday. It's D-Day for the repo market. On Monday, 100 billion in liquidity will be drained. What happens next? The article begins, last week's apocalyptic report by repo market guru Zoltan Pozsar, which, for those who missed it, it predicted that an imminent market crash and loss of control of overnight rates by the Fed would spark nothing short of QE4, sparked an unprecedented panic at the Federal Reserve, which just 2 days later unveiled a historic liquidity injection in which the Fed promised to inject no less than $500 billion in the next 4 weeks to avert a catastrophic freeze in the repo market as we approached the year-end turn, which would consist not only of a continuation of the Fed's T-bill POMO, but also a massive injection of nearly $500 billion in overnight and term repos in the coming days. It's really Zimbabwe level math, Bix, and that's what scares the heck out of me. And I wonder how much should those who are listening be scared, and what should they do? I'm not trying to cause a panic. This isn't fear-mongering. This is the type of stuff you're not going to hear about. It's not going to be reported on CNN. If there's a fire burning at a particular bank, which bank is it? I guess that's the big question. Is it Deutsche Bank? Is there a bank that has failed and that's why this is happening?
But it could be part of the problem. I think many of these banks without this overnight repo will have failed. Many of the larger banks, and if you get one too big to fail bank that fails, it's all over. They all fail. So yes, people should be panicking, but they should have been panicking for years. The reality of what's going on right now, because they have the ability to rig the price of commodities and anything with the computers and derivatives used to rig the Dow and the foreign exchange markets, and obviously gold and silver and the crypto markets, because they have that ability to rehypothecate any asset they want, sell as many ounces of gold as they want, as many ounces of silver as they want, because it's not the real thing being traded. That keeps everything on the inflation side under control. And so they can do anything they want with these computer programs right now. But all it takes is one of these kind of manipulation arms to fall out of step. For example, if a couple big patriots want to go after the silver market, every dollar that silver rises, the big 8 manipulators lose $1 billion. So if you have a $50 rise in silver, you're going to have a $500 or $50 billion loss by 8 of the big banks, meaning JP Morgan, obviously, HSBC, Deutsche Bank, all the big riggers that we know about in silver. So it is a game that they manipulate very well with computers and derivatives. And until we take these exchanges out, we're going to just have more of the same.
Well, more of the same means less for the people and more for the banksters. Just like we saw in 2008, the banks are in control of the show, just like they have been since 1913 and the formation of the Federal Reserve under Woodrow Wilson. Now we're mired in QE4. This Zero Hedge article goes on to say, in other words, instead of a reactive QE4, as predicted by Pozsar, the Fed will flood the repo market with a proactive fire hose of liquidity. There's more. Add in the incremental liquidity from the expanded overnight repo of about 50 billion and another 60 billion in T-bill purchases, which I just mentioned at the beginning of the call, and the Fed will inject a total of just shy of 500 billion in the next 30 days. This also means that by January 14th, the Fed's balance sheet, remember, Bix, they told us they could unwind their balance sheet after 2008. That's no problem, they said. The Fed's balance sheet would have grown by a cumulative 365 billion in temporary repos, and together with the expanded overnight repos and the 60 billion in monthly T-bill purchases, and by mid-January, the Fed's balance sheet, currently at 4.06 trillion, will surpass its all-time high of 4.5 trillion. So explain to me how they unwind that. I guess at this point, all we can hope for is that the world continues to embrace the dollar as the world's reserve currency, but you and I both know that that's not happening anymore.
Well, it is only because all the other fiat currencies are just as bad a shape. And we really have gotten to a point where countries have stopped reporting exactly how much they create. And with the, the Catherine Austin Fitz's revelations of the U.S. Printing literally $30 trillion and not telling anybody, imagine if you're sitting there in China or Russia and saying, oh my God, the USA was lying, now I'm going to lie. So all governments now are printing money like it's going out of style, and this is the end game. This is the end game of fiat money, and we unfortunately have to live through it.
All right. Well, I guess as we wrap this up, maybe you can remind people about your version of how you think this ends, because the way this particular Zero Hedge article wraps up is not good. It says, in any case, when looking at tomorrow's massive 100 billion liquidity drain, the repo market should be able to digest it without a spike in the GC repo rate, now that the Fed has effectively backstopped any and all year-end liquidity needs. If, however, the first repo prints come in elevated at 2% or higher, it would mean that not even the Fed's $500 billion liquidity injection was enough, and that Posar's fire and brimstone forecast for a total collapse is starting to come true. How does this end in any sort of way that's good for you and me and we the people?
Well, the only way it can end that'll be good for us is a destruction of the old system, and not kicking the can down the line as we've been doing for the past 100 years. So we do have to go through this. Our grandparents should have gone through it before us. It just gets worse and worse. We can't pass this on to our kids. We do have to go through the destruction of the old system and then a reboot of a new system. And I do think there's plans in place according to the Road to Ruta documents. It has to do with the gold standard, using all the gold that we've been hiding away in the Grand Canyon and Chocolate Mountain and all these different places in the United States. That is a doable thing. And the alternative to that is having the same system run by the same corrupt people, endless wars, and all the bad things that unbacked fiat money has brought to humanity over the last 100 years. It is our responsibility to end this, and I think that's how this ends. I'm hoping sooner rather than later. I'm thinking the first quarter of next year is when we really do end the old system and start something new.
All right. Well, we'll keep our eye on it. Hey, look, maybe we take another 5 minutes as we round this out and we try to bring a little humor and levity to the conversation. Have you been keeping your eye on these crazy Democrats and their impeachment charade? Adam Schiff at his own town hall is being brutally attacked by people who are calling him a liar. We see other congressional Democrats going home and having their town halls absolutely being screamed at because nobody supports this impeachment. And meanwhile, new polls coming out of Harvard suggest that Hillary Clinton is the real frontrunner. Boy, man, what do these people have left to sell the American people aside from open borders and illegal immigrants voting?
It has gone full on crazy bat stuff. I think, yes, they had to pull the impeachment card because they were all going to jail for other crimes. And this was definitely a deflection from their own misgivings. And I think it's all going to come back to bite them. And hopefully we'll have a culling of Congress that, I've talked about a long time. I was hearing over a third of Congress will be removed if the truth is let out what they were really doing. And I think it will be. So we're at that point where Trump's got it holding every card in the deck, and it all depends on when he wants to play it. I'm not a fan of Trump and his market rigging tactics. I think that's the worst thing he could do for America, but I understand he wanted to keep the system together while we take out the sludge in the swamp. So, Yeah, we'll see where this goes, but definitely Trump and the good guys have the upper hand right now.
Yeah, well, definitely people are starting to recognize, I mean, people from all walks of life, even Democrats. I want to play a clip for you here in a second. You can listen to the audio, but even Democrats are showing up at these Democrat town halls now that these people are home for the holidays, and their constituents are freaking out over this impeachment madness. Listen to this. I retweeted this today. This is a tweet from Ryan Fournier, and I retweeted saying, the good news, most people are now fully woke to the Dems' endless lies. And what Ryan showed in this clip, what he wrote about is this, and he shared this clip. He said, Representative Elisa Slotkin has announced her support for impeachment. Her constituents are not happy. Rep. Slotkin is one of the 31 Democrats that represents districts that President Trump won in 2016. Voters will remember this in 2020. Listen to this 30-second clip, Biggs.
I'm going to walk you through my logic. And I know it's clear that we don't all agree, but I'm going to walk you through my logic in an attempt to be transparent. And I knew from the very beginning that this was going to be a controversial decision, right? That was something I understood from the very beginning. But for me, it was something that was important to do. So in September, I'm just going to keep on rolling, folks.
I'm going to just keep on rolling, folks. You know, it's just funny that these people literally, like, everybody knows they're lying. Everybody knows that Biden's guilty, far more guilty of doing bad things in Ukraine and quid pro quo than anything they've charged President Trump with doing. And everybody knows the Mockingbird mainstream media is lying and covering up the facts. And now these Democrats, they want to continue with this impeachment madness when they know that it can't get through the Senate. The Senate's not going to impeach President Trump. So it really is just an absolute joke. And now the whole world can see the emperor wears no clothes. And when I say the emperor, I'm talking about Adam Schiff, Joe Biden, the Mockingbird mainstream media, Anderson Cooper, Wolf Blitzer, Rachel Maddow. It's just a shit show, isn't it?
It is absolutely. And I think the Senate trial, I'm hoping that goes forward and they start calling up like Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Adam Schiff to testify under oath. That would be great. And then they have all the dirt. Remember, the NSA has every electronic voicemail, every email, you name it, they have it. So they have all the dirt on these people. And the question is, when does Trump want to lay that out for everybody to see? I think whoever votes to impeach Trump is going to find a very, very, very difficult time getting ever reelected after all the real evidence comes out.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you because, I mean, we even have simple things like Joe Biden's own words when he was bragging at the Council on Foreign Relations about his quid pro quo and withholding $1 billion unless they fired the prosecutor. And guess what? By God, they fired the prosecutor who ... was investigating his son Hunter and Burisma. So yeah, these people, man, I'll tell you what, I just never dreamt when I was a kid that we would live in a country really dominated and run by such corrupt powers. Hillary Clinton and her husband really being at the top of that list. But I'm an equal opportunity finger pointer. They're best friends with the Bush family. Bush
And the
Sr.
Rothschilds.
Yeah, that's right. Lady Rothschild being one of Hillary's biggest supporters when she was running for president. But again, being an equal opportunity finger pointer, Lady de Rothschild was also very bullish about John McCain and very supportive of John McCain. So we begin to see who the real puppet masters are and who their pawns are when we talk about John McCain and Hillary Clinton and Bush Sr. saying before he died that he would suggest people vote for Hillary. I mean, it's just obvious now, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
And let's not forget good old Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, good old Jeffrey Epstein, a good friend to Bill Clinton and the Lolita Express, those 26, 27 flights that Bill took to Little St. James, and God knows what was going on there. Well, you know what? The bottom line is God does know. I was on a call today with my friend Tiffany Fitzhenry for her show, and I asked her, how do these people sleep at night? What deal did they make with the devil or otherwise that allows them to sleep at night? And that's the part I can't figure out, Bix. Literally, life is so short. Who would want to cut these deals to sell their souls for what? Earthly gains, for money?
Yeah.
In a life that is as fleeting and short as this one, it's just, I don't get it.
I think you do get it. That's exactly what they did, and they will reap the consequences of their actions if they aren't already. I think many of these people have been taken out and shown the guillotine down in Guantanamo. Although they won't tell us that. It'd be too disruptive to the continuity of the country. I think everything is about to get really disrupted.
All right. Well, we're all just praying for justice, and we're praying for you and your family. I know that you had a family tragedy recently, and we talked about that offline. So God bless you and your family. Our hearts go out to all the listeners, big supporters of Bix Weir. We love you, Bix. So
thank you, Sean, and thank everybody who has been so supportive. It's amazing. You think I'm on YouTube and I know some people, but you don't know people really until the chips are down, and when they are, I got just a huge outpouring of well wishes, and it was amazing.
I'm glad to hear that. And my heart goes out to so many people, to everybody who struggles. And we're all under assault. Our families are under assault. And that's the reason that we have these conversations. That's the reason there is an alt media, is because we want the truth to be uncovered. We want people to identify the enemies of humanity. And we want people to understand that, these banksters that control the printing presses, well, they also control the intelligence agencies, and the whole thing has been weaponized against we the people. So that's, I guess, at the end of the day, Bix, why they don't want our information being recommended. They don't want our information being recommended on YouTube. They literally changed their algorithms to try to silence us. And so far it's been pretty effective, but fortunately not totally effective.
Yeah, I think we're going to win the battle at the end of the day. Good triumphs over evil, and we are definitely fighting on the good side.
Amen. All right, Bix. And your website, so people can follow you, is roadtoruta.com, correct?
Roadtoruta.com, and mainly on YouTube now at Road to Ruta.
Yeah. All right. Well, very good. Road to Ruta. Guys, subscribe to Bix on YouTube. He puts out a report, a Horn of Z's report, a morning cup of coffee just about every day. So subscribe to Bix, roadtoruta.com on YouTube. Our guest has been Bix Weir. Thanks, Bix.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, man. All right. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, for real news 24/7, you can visit us directly at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda. God bless. Bye-bye.
Son of a bitch, he got fired, right, Joe? Son of a bitch, he got fired, right? Remember that? Trump is innocent. Trump is innocent.